Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Life's Unfair, my Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous playthrough series. Today, as I promised, we're going to be entering the final segment of Act 3, The Midnight Fane. What horrors await us within? Stay tuned to find out. Yeah, so as you can expect, or as you might expect, this place is pretty tough. Initially I kind of expected to come out of the I thought the Ivory Labyrinth was going to be kind of the peak or the kind of the end of the whole act. It was going to close it out, but and thus be the longest part, but no, it's not. The Midnight Fane is harder and larger and contains more fights than the Ivory Labyrinth. So yeah, it's a pretty crazy place, and it's right beneath your feet in Dresden. You saw that right at the beginning. A pit opened up, literal pit to hell, and then you go down into it and you run into this place. It's full of demons, and that explains kind of how the demons were getting into the city, right? Even though the banner is up, the demons are able to get in, not because they're teleporting in from elsewhere in Golarion, but because they are coming directly from the abyss through portals and then coming up into the city itself. Just walking. They don't have a large physical distance to travel due to those portals. So you can see, taking out demon fight after demon fight. You could see there in the beginning the hand of the Inheritor, who's, Angel, Queen Galfrey is down here as well. You have a bunch of friends, right? You're trying to push the demons back out of Dresden, and you saw Minago there on the other side of that barrier, who we finally ran into her again. And yeah, she's on the run now. We do run into her again in the abyss. I've had another encounter with her out there, but we'll leave talk of that for when we get there. Here she just kind of, throws some demons at you and runs away. A lot of the fights here, they're not particular. There are maybe a handful of fights in here that are ridiculous. Some cheesable, some not. For the most part, using just, summons, as you can see right here, right? I'm throwing summons at these guys, skeletons like crazy. Darren is my lich, and yeah, they come in handy here. Very handy. Ember's my fire mage. She's just... I love that spell. It looks so cool, and it does such a ridiculous amount of damage. It crits for I think 200 plus is the highest I've seen it crit on everything. When it rolls a crit, right, everything, it's not per mob, it's the spell crits, and then everything that's being hit by it. So there you can see, right, okay, this is one of the worst fights in the whole Midnight Fane. Very early on, 3 Nalfashnees, and you're not going to see my failures, so you see one failure there, and I'm cutting out the rest of the failures because there were a lot of them. The reason these things are so problematic is because of their crowd control. The crowd control they cast. So what I did, right, Blade Barrier and 2 nukes to start off with, right, 2 fireballs to get them down a bit, and then I just have Razor Fiend kind of up in front, and I have them kind of dying to Blade Barrier. You saw I had some skeletons summoned there, but they don't do much good because the skeletons just run through the Blade Barrier and die before the Nalfashnees even kind of react. So any skeletons that are kind of involved in the fight, you have to summon during the fight. And this is attempt number, I don't even know what attempt number this was. There you can see unfair, blah blah blah. But yeah. It took a lot of attempts to take them down, but we did get them. So I'm going to speak. Yeah, the reason I walked through the Blade Barrier there is a method to my madness. I wasn't just walking through it because I'm a masochist. Clearly, I enjoy pain because I'm playing on unfair blind, but I don't like inflicting pain upon my main character here, Razor Fiend. The reason I'm walking through it is because I want to pull mobs through it as well. So you can, it's hard to appreciate at this speed, but the way I've positioned the blade barriers, I've positioned them in such a way that I can walk through just one blade. So walking from where my party is to these crystal mobs, I have to walk through all of them, hence the healing. But walking back, I can kind of walk, so you can see I walk into a corner there and get into that corner, I only have to walk through one or two. So that doesn't require massive healing. And doing so, what I do is I run into that corner, go into stealth, and have the rest of my party aggro the mob that is running towards me. And so that mob doesn't run and hit Razor Fiend, it runs to the rest of my party, and then it runs through all the blade barriers instead of just the two that would lead to Razor Fiend. And the reason I sped through that whole sequence is there aren't a lot of deaths there, but it took a long time. And honestly, I don't know why I did that. You could summon a bunch of skeletons here and do the same thing way easier. The reason I did that is because I was like, well, these blade barriers are up already. I kind of want to make use of them, but it was a waste of time. I would recommend, I guess the issue with this place is, right, you can't really rest here. You can rest here, but there's really very few places that you clear corruption. So you do have to be kind of conservative with your spells, and that is why I did it, because I didn't want to waste the blade barriers there. I had to use all of them to kill the Nalfashni, and I was like, oh, well, I'm going to make as much use of them as I can here. And that's why. So after that, right, proceed on up here, and unfortunately run into a bunch of Babaus, get annihilated, and it's not just these Babaus here. There's a lot more. So I was prepping to fight them, and I cast Bless. Was it Bless? Or the Prayer. The one that does the area of effect kind of debuff. And it hit this thing. I was like, oh, ready to go. And that was the last thing I needed to cast before sending my horde in to kill those Babaus. And I hit this thing and pulled it down to me. And I was like, oh, god damn it. And then all my skeletons run up there. And, well, yeah, we had to fight this thing. And there's actually another one up there, a smaller one, that we do take out. So after that, save the game. And more failed attempts on these Babaus. And the reason I fail is because it's not just these things. So the Babaus themselves are pretty tough, but a bunch of guys come through the portal and they're really tough. So yeah, this is where the big carnivorous crystal came from, and there's a smaller one up there. Just kill it, and I have to rest up here. And the reason I do is because the next fight over here is actually pretty hard. Initially, what I tried was standing up there and just kind of shooting down while the guys run. But the reason that doesn't work is because some of the enemies are ranged. So they kind of just stand down there and shoot all your ranged guys dead. And it's really hard to manage the aggro. I tried, bringing Razor Fiend down and having him intercept them, but they still focus the back line. So in the end, I had to kind of fight everyone down here. And yeah, the reason, right, so the succubus sharpshooters, they're the big problem here. And you can see you can't really see, but they keep on switching aggro, which makes it a tough fight. So this is another really tough fight. Nalfashni, definitely the worst one so far that we've encountered. There's another one in this episode that was also particularly bad. I'll let you know when we get there. Right over here, so this thing over here, Vavakia, sounds pretty cute actually, but it isn't cute. This thing, the biggest issue with it is this, what it casts right here, what it's casting, this breath weapon attack. So yeah, it makes short work of my summons. So the first few times I tried it, swarmed it with summons, and then it just, halitosis killed my entire squad. And it casts it more than once, so be careful. But it's not a particularly strong mob. You can see its AC was pretty low, like 40 something. It's just the breath attack that's the big issue. So just keep your party back. Send in the Razor Fiend, send in the Negotiator, and his goons, aka skeletons, and they will kind of, they'll make short work of him. assuming they don't all get taken out in the first breath attack. Alright, so these things were actually harder than the Vavakia, because, yeah, they were just tough, right? I'm being conservative here, right? I've already just rested, so I don't want to rest again to resummon a bunch of skeletons. So what I'm doing here is you've seen me employ this tactic in previous videos where I cast 2 fireballs. So cast haste on Nenyo and Greater Invis if you have it, and then just 2 fireballs back to back and run away, and then run back, 2 fireballs back to back, and just keep doing that until she kills them. So this is a pretty cool item, this full plate of Spell Nullify. It's a really good tanking item, but the issue with this is it blocks. So I don't know why this is. I'm pretty sure it's a bug, but the armor buff that you can cast on your armor and shield, so Darren can cast it and Wendewog can cast it, Razor Fiend can resist that spell. And that's really dumb. That has to be a bug. There's no way that isn't a bug. But if you wear this armor, it makes it so that you resist it almost all the time. So yeah, it's pretty silly. So there's another fight out here right after. So this entire area is kind of just like sections that are kind of in the Abyss, and then sections that are back in Golarion, and you're just like stepping through portals into the Abyss, clearing them out, and then stepping out of another portal back into Golarion in a different section of the Midnight Fane. So one of my most useful spells now, definitely Blade Barrier. Okay, so this is another thing right here that happens pretty often in the Midnight Fane. After you step out of a portal, you'll come into a situation where all the people who you left behind kind of in the middle get attacked by a bunch of demons. And so they're invulnerable. I mean, they can die, but they can be knocked unconscious, but they cannot die. And so the best way to manage this is to just pull the enemies into them and then just run away and kind of hide. You've seen me employ this tactic before in several videos as well, where you kind of pull the enemies into your allies and let them handle them. And why actually fight here if you don't have to, right? It'll save you all your spells, it'll save you damage, you won't have to heal, any of that stuff, and you get the EXP and the loot, so there's no reason not to do this at all, unless you there's really no reason not to do it, on Unfair at least, right? There's no reason not to. So you can see a lot of it is about positioning correctly. So if you've seen my previous videos, you have to get your line of sight in such a way that you can see your allies, but you cannot see the demons, and then that way your allies can hit the demons, but the demons cannot hit your allies. And yeah, so that comes into play later. That happened a bunch of times. So after that, we head on downstairs, which is directly to the right of where we fought those Minotaurs and that priest of Baphomet and everything, where we cast a Blade Barrier. Right, so we head on down the stairs and we come down to this area, and this was one of the harder fights as well. A bunch of incubi, and it took a lot of attempts here. So you can see how laggy it became here, but it happened in 2 phases. Not all the incubi came here, and again, so these distorted mythic enemies, once you've taken them out once, they fully heal up. So they heal up to full health, but their health slowly drains on their second life. So technically, you can just kite them around until they die. But I still hadn't figured that out yet. I only figured that out actually on the hardest fight, I want to say, in this whole place. Alright, so we take those incubi out, and they're unfair again, blah blah, and then obviously have to so I didn't know there were 2 more incubi. There are 2 more incubi alive in the room here. I didn't know that. There, boom, came out of stealth, killed my doggo, Triceratops, and yeah, we gotta take him out the good old-fashioned way. No Blade Barrier cheese here. So it does come in handy. You can see that ring really coming into play here, the knockback thing. That saved me so many times. I only just recently actually switched it out on Razor Fiend for another ring. And actually, in the most recent patch notes, I believe they fixed a lot of items. They fixed like half of the pair and stuff like that. So I may switch out my neck as well. All right, so after we clear that room out, we run into Yaniel down here, who does upgrade our Radiance. So you can see Minago ran through there, cast a barrier, and we get upgraded Radiance, right? Enhancement +4 now. Hell yeah. Which is awesome. And it has a pretty cool effect as well, right? You could see what the effect was there. It's pretty nice, but I have better stuff, at least for tanking, kind of. And then, right, so we run into a Pursuer Retriever here. Not a Hunter Retriever, not a Retriever, not a Hunter, but a Pursuer Retriever. And it doesn't take too much trouble. It isn't too much trouble to take this thing out. It was like 2 attempts, honestly. Not particularly bad. I'm just hoping... I think these things cast like Flesh to Stone. And I don't have anyone that has Stone to Flesh. So it would be a real problem if somebody... I mean, I would just reload the game, honestly. But if I was in a kind of scenario where I had to take a petrified character, I would be in a lot of trouble. And yeah, straight through the portal into a bunch of babaus. And my party goes baboom. And yeah. Good thing about this area is it's... a lot of the Midnight Fane Abyss areas have a lot of natural choke points, so you don't have to do a lot of searching around for doorways and stuff like that. A lot of the areas that you fight in are kind of just choked off, constricted. There are like natural landforms and bridges and stuff that you can use. These babaus are pretty tough. Babau eliminators and warriors, they're pretty tough. We proceed over there and we run into Grisilla, who is a priestess of Notkula. She knows Arushale, and you can fight her, but she is a tough fight, and I didn't fight her because she seemed kind of friendly. I know she's a demoness, and typically that means nothing good. But I opt not to fight her just for the sake, because again, at this point, I'm trying to be conservative, right? I want to get through this place, get to a point where I can kind of rest and reset corruption. And yeah, so it's not really viable for me to expend one entire rest on just her. I need to take out the stuff that I really absolutely have to. So we proceed here through a portal, and we get to fight this. So this is kind of where Minago and Yaniel were. This is the barrier that she put up. So she put up the barrier here and ran into the abyss through the portal that's right behind me here. And we're coming through on the other side of the barrier now. And there's a rock here. And you could see there, I still didn't realize that the distorted mythic enemies died there. You could see there that it actually died to its own DOT ticking down. Okay, this is the worst fight in the whole place. Probably a toss-up between the 3 Nalfishnis in this fight. This is nasty. I tried summons. I tried everything to kill these things, but they are ridiculous. I don't know why. Maybe I was just getting unlucky repeatedly, and I'm going to speed through this whole sequence here because the way I took it out in the end was the Ember nuke and run strat. And even that took a lot of, I failed a bunch of times. And the issue with doing the strategy is you can't really save while you're doing it, because every time you save, they regenerate a bit of health. So that erases some of the progress that you've done. So ideally, you want to do it in one stretch with no deaths in between. At one point here, I did save kind of in the middle, because I killed a mob, and then I was pretty sure that none of my AoEs had been hitting the mobs that I was going to move on to. So I was like, okay, I can save now because they're not really going to regenerate anything. They're at full health already. So I saved and then moved on to the other mobs. And here I'm running out. So I'm looking for like fireball scrolls and stuff like that because I'm out of spells. Right, Ember died and I revived her. I didn't even reload the game because, yeah. But then Arushale, that was so dumb. That set me back. That set me way back. Arushale's death there, and I kind of had to to restart from the midway point again. And yeah, I'm sorry for the speed footage. It's I mean, you can definitely see what's going on here. You can see that. So when you cross that crystal bridge, on the left side there's a Coloxus Defiler. There's a pathing, not Nabasu, one of those big ass demons, kind of paths between the Coloxus and the Nabasu pack. And with the Nabasu, there are a few other demons alongside it. And so my first priority was to take out the pathing demon. And then after that, we focus on the Nabasu and his friends. There are two Nabasu there, actually. And then after that, we actually run in and take out the Coloxus with just tank and spank. So here, right? This is when I learned the distorted mythic enemies die. So you could see there, I was just standing out of range of it, and its health was just ticking down, 27 health at a time until it died. And that's when I finally learned that you don't actually have to kill them twice, just once and then run away. Let nature take its course and do the rest. Coloxus Defiler, nothing to shake a stick at. Still a tough fight, and but we're able to take it down. So the bridge over here next to the Coloxus Defiler, if you proceed up that way, that's where Playful Darkness is. But you can't access that area until over here, right? So a rope is let down from there, and you can kind of climb up and down it. But you can't access it until you've placed the rope, which is a little further in. Actually, towards the end of the Midnight Fane for me, honestly. All right, after that, we head on through the portal, and we're back into the Midnight Fane, into Golarion. And there's a pretty tough fight right on the other side of this portal that I ended up having to use both summons and Blade Barrier for. It's this Galu warmonger thing, and his buddies. Not a particularly pleasant encounter by any. I think I actually had to rest here before taking this thing on, and here is the first place that you can. And the reason I rested is because I saw that you could reset corruption here. So this is one of the places you can lower your corruption a little bit, and so that gave me, at least one extra rest, and so I decided I had to take it there. I was really out of everything, so I rested there, and then boom. Then we can, lower corruption through the door, pass mobility check. Here's a pretty high mobility check, but it's a pretty low unknown check to get back, which is pretty weird. So pass it, get some stuff, and then you could see that was Minago again. And some Babaus, trapped chest over here, and we pull the Babaus to this choke point here with, man, pets are so useful. Without my trusty Triceratops here, so many strategies would just not work at all. He enables so much. So we pull the Babaus with the Trike, because they're all in stealth, so if I'd pulled them with the Razor Fiend, they would have literally one-shotted him, or they would have taken, him to 0 health, and then we would have popped his mythic ability, which I kind of want to save. All right, so this is coming towards the end of this episode. So your allies get attacked again by another horde of demons in the middle room, and so the whole thing you're doing here is collecting keys to unlock the door that's kind of at the top behind the altar there. And you need 3 keys, so the friendly succubus gives you one of them. You can fight her and kill her and take the key off her that way, and you get other keys by killing other kind of big demons. And so this is a pretty involved encounter. Use Arushale with her great stealth skills to kind of lead my allies towards the enemies here, and you can see the positioning, how I'm positioning in such a way that only my allies are kind of visible, but the enemies are not, and so my allies do the damage, but the enemies do no damage back to them. And yeah, this is another kind of thing where it's not worth like actually fighting them, because it's just a pain. So after that, right, loot up. So there are a ton of marlets in here. If you want to exploit the bug where you loot stuff, save the game, load the game, loot, save, load, loot, save, load, loot, you can get basically infinite money in here, which is pretty hilarious. But that's going to be it for today, I think. Tomorrow when we pick up, we're going to finish off the Midnight Fane, and yeah, the next episode after this is going to be cleaning up our act, and then it's going to be, well, after the Midnight Fane, it's going to be cleaning up our act, and then we're going to be into the Abyss, Act 4.